Hello, and welcome to today's expert webinar presentation presented by Accountants World. Today's presentation will be a modern approach to marketing your firm, and it will be presented by our very own Div Bhansali, Vice President here at Accountants World. Thank you for joining us today. I will be your host today. My name is Thomas Provine. I am a marketing coordinator here at Accountants World. Just a couple of tips for the GoToWebinar engine. The attendee control panel, you can use that orange arrow to expand or hide the panel. The audio options, you can expand the audio section to choose telephone or computer speakers, or you can click the phone icon. And if you would like to type in questions, and we encourage questions throughout the webinar presentation about the content, expand the questions section, type your question, and click send. There will be one CPE credit offered for today's webinar. If you're wondering what the three things are that you need to achieve CPE credit, you need to attend the live webinar for no less than 15 minutes. You need to respond to all of the polling questions during the webinar, and you must submit the post-webinar survey within 24 hours after the webinar has ended. If you're wondering how you will receive your CPE, you will be receiving it by email within 3 business days. And we just like to ask everybody to add webinar@accountantsworld.com to your trusted email list. That is the email address in which the CPE credit will be coming from. So please make sure to add that to your trusted email list. One new thing that we will be doing is we will be offering a free ebook, how to make money from payroll. We know many accountants offer payroll services as well, and we want to help you make more money from those payroll services. And like we say, we support thousands of accountants, and we believe all accounting firms can profit from it, and they can leverage these breakthroughs in technology and select the right business model. This is a really dynamic ebook. It's a great piece of content, and we know that you will gain great insight from it. So if you are interested in getting a free copy delivered to your inbox, we will find out right now. So we will launch the first poll question here. Alrighty. And that poll question is simply, I'd like the free ebook, How to Make Money from Payroll. So just click yes or no, and we will send you that free ebook. We'll just wait about a couple of seconds here. All right, we have about 80% that have voted here. All right, just wait about a couple more seconds. All right, going once, going twice, and that should be it. So we will close those results here. All righty. Just a little bit about our speaker today, Div Bhansali. Div is the Vice President here at Accountants World. He is currently a lecturer at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and he's a consultant to small and medium-sized firms about their marketing and growth strategies. And I can also attest that he's a very good boss, believe it or not. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our presenter today, Div Bhansali. Div, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Tom. How are you doing?
Fantastic.
Good. All right, so if you want to send control my way.
Yes, I will. Give me 1 second. All righty, let me make you a presenter here.
Okay. Tom, are you seeing my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen just fine.
All right, sounds great. Well, folks, thank you for joining me today. I'm really excited to be presenting on a topic that I care about and I think about a lot, which is helping firms like yours to grow and to market what they do more effectively and more efficiently. So really looking forward to getting started here. Just a quick about me. Tom covered the first 3 things on here: head of marketing at Accountants World. We're a leader in cloud-based software for public accounting firms. I'm a part-time lecturer at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Go Heels, and a marketing and growth consultant to businesses of all sizes. That's all just sort of a prelude to the most important part, which is I'm a husband and a father of those two that you see pictured there, that certainly counts like a full-time job just as much as any of these other things do. So welcome. Looking forward to going through this today with you. I want to start, Tom, if you could go ahead and launch the second poll question. I want to get a sense of what our audience, what kind of role you play in terms of marketing within your organization right now.
All right, and that second poll question has been launched here, and it's a simple one. My main marketing role is to make decisions, execute our marketing, support our efforts, or do you do a bit of everything? And I just want to remind everybody that answering the poll questions is required for CPE credit today. So we will ask right here. The main marketing role is to make decisions, execute our marketing, support our efforts, or just a little bit of everything. I'll leave it open for just another 5 seconds here. Alrighty, going once, going twice, and let's close that up and share those results, Div. So Div, 16% of people said make decisions, 4% of people said execute our marketing, 15% said support our efforts, or 65% said a bit of everything. That doesn't surprise me. Being in a marketing role here at Accountants World, I kind of find that we do, a little bit of everything under the marketing umbrella. Do you see that from not just internally, but also with the firms that we help here at Accountants World?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a function of two things. One, which I think you alluded to, is that marketing tends to be a all hands on deck sort of activity, more so than more precise sort of focused areas like operations or sales or professional services that are offered by an accounting firm. Everyone tends to have some level of involvement in marketing. And I think the other part this represents is that we have a lot of folks who are in small firms. So it might be a one-person firm, it might be a three-person firm. And at smaller firms in particular, many times, every single person within the firm has a pretty clear idea of what they're trying to accomplish for marketing, just like they do with all the other areas as well. So, so that's great. That's a good start there. And Tom, just keep me on check in terms of how the audio is coming in. I just made a little adjustment on my side, so hopefully that helps. But if it doesn't, I can switch to the computer speakers if that's a problem. So I want to start by talking a little bit about what marketing is from the framework that we're talking about here in terms of a modern approach to marketing. We've got to think differently about marketing than we did 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And I would also say we need to think differently than what the popular consensus tends to be around marketing. And so the first thing I want to talk about is what marketing is not. As a marketing consultant, when I meet with a prospective new client, the most common concern I hear is, do I need to do something different with my social media? And to me, this is a little bit like if you were looking at how to become a better cook, and the first thing you did is go out and buy better dinnerware, right? That's not really the core of what we're looking to do from a strategy perspective. Social media is a tool, not a strategy. And so how many followers your brand has on different social media, how many likes you get when you post something, the concept of influencers, which I think is largely overblown, especially for B2B service offerings. All of those things are part of the recipe of what you're going to do, but they are not core to your marketing strategy. That's not the starting point. That's not the foundation that we have here. Same thing with public relations. We tend to get really impressed when we see an organization getting PR, getting exposure in a public way. And sure, in general, exposure is better than not getting exposure. But we also know that that's not always true, right? There certainly is such a thing as bad publicity or unfocused publicity, which means that you're getting attention for things that simply are tangential to what your firm is really about. So again, what we're looking to do with PR is part of the outcome, but that's not the strategy to get there. And then finally, marketing is not all about the stats. Certainly, marketing has moved more and more in a quantitative area. As more and more marketing is done digitally, you can get a better read of what's happening. You can look at marketing dashboards, whether you're doing digital ads or what your search strategy is, or what's happening on your website. If you have Google Analytics hanging up on it, or any of those sorts of things. Sending out emails, you can always see what the open rate is and how many people are clicking and so on. But that again is a after the fact statement of what's happened, and it doesn't necessarily connote quality, right? So if we're looking to start with quality marketing, let's start with something a little bit earlier stage than that. So the way I want to frame marketing is, it is the connection between everything that you and your firm have to offer and everything that your target audience wants and needs. So the ability to draw that connection, to define what that connection is, to communicate it in a really clear way, and then to be able to follow through on it and demonstrate that you follow through on it. That is what marketing is. And so one of the things that I think is significant about that, and we're going to talk about sort of the target audience concept for the next couple of slides here. But the first thing I want to point out here is, if we go by this definition, then every single one of you in your firm is a marketer, right? Because every single one of you has some responsibility for drawing a connection between what your firm has to offer and what your target audience wants and needs. And I think that's a really empowering thing to think about. I think a lot of times when we think about doing marketing, if that's not our full-time job, I think there's this concept, and I talk to clients about this often, there's a concept of sort of looking for permission to do marketing because it seems sort of exotic and there are all these tools out there and there's all this terminology and so on. And I think it's empowering for all of you to realize that you're all doing that already anyway, right? What we're going to talk about is reshaping how you think about that, and then talk a little bit about some of the tools that are available to you as well. So first of all, congratulations, you are a marketer. The next thing I want to do is talk about something that this guy said. This is Seth Godin. Seth Godin is a leading speaker and author, best-selling author, on marketing and growth and sort of defining a clear purpose for your business and then carrying it through your marketing and execution as well. So there's a quote of his that I think is really good. And you can read it here as well, but I'll just sort of highlight the key parts. So when you seek to engage with everyone, you rarely delight anyone. And if you're not irreplaceable, essential, etc., you never get a chance to engage with the market. The solution is simple but counterintuitive. Stake out the smallest market you can imagine, not the biggest, the smallest market that you can truly serve. And you have your eyes firmly focused on the minimum viable audience, your quality, your story, and your impact will all get better. Now, a couple of important points on this. Number one, this might be sort of scary to hear about a minimum viable audience, because you may look at how much you're looking to make top line and say, my minimum viable audience, one audience couldn't get me there. So an important point that Seth makes later on in this book is that your organization doesn't have to serve just one minimum viable audience. You may have the capacity and skill set to serve 2 or 3 or more different viable audiences very well. The key here is not in the singularity of it, it's in the level of focus. It's being focused in terms of how you define your audience, right? So we're not going to define our audience as all small businesses, right? Let's be more focused in terms of what type of small business is really, you're really well suited to serve, or all sorts of high net worth families. Well, let's be more clearly defined there in terms of exactly what you're looking to define. This is the opposite of generalization in your marketing. So when your approach to marketing is generalized, in this marketplace now, where the consumer has so much transparency into you and every one of your competitors, right? There's no, I don't have to open up a yellow book and only find the people in my area. I can find every single business that serves a need that I have anywhere that I want, locally, regionally, in my state, nationally, whatever it might be. And so when your approach to marketing is generalized, what tends to happen is you're the second or third best solution for everyone, right? Which is a terrible place to be. Being part of a consideration set in a vague general way, but then not being able to really make that connection that we talked about in the previous slide is a lose-lose. You're not communicating what you can really do in an effective way. Second point I'll make on here is in terms of defining your viable audience, how do we actually do that? Well, one way that many accounting firms do that is by industry. So one of our customers here at Accountants World I spoke to recently is a CPA in Indiana, and he earned a new client about 5 years ago in the home inspection services industry, and learned more about that industry so he could serve that client well, did a phenomenal job, and as we all know always tends to happen, word of mouth is the most powerful marketing tool available. That home inspection services firm told their peers, one thing led to another, and the CPA's firm now serves 40 plus home inspection companies all across America, right? Now, why did that happen? Well, number one, that happened because those firms talk to each other. That's not a surprise. But on the other side of the wall, what happened is that he clearly defined how he could solve the needs of that very specific niche there, right? So it's an industry niche. He defined how he could serve that industry's needs very clearly and in a unique way, and that became his minimum viable audience. And lo and behold, that viable audience is actually pretty substantial over time. It doesn't have to be by industry. It can also be by size. It can be by business life cycle stage. So you could be looking at firms that are early stage, firms that are later stage and looking to be acquired or merge or cash out. That could be a key factor as well. It could be businesses with specific requirements from a functional standpoint. So businesses that have specific regulatory requirements or specific tax and audit requirements or specific payroll requirements if you're offering payroll services. However you define it, the key is, can you become irreplaceable for that audience? Can you become the service provider for that audience where they're never really looking elsewhere because they are so ingrained in terms of what you do that it would be irresponsible for them to think of moving to anybody else at that point, right? So that sort of irreplaceability happens with a smaller viable audience rather than a maximum viable audience. So great, now we've talked about the audience part, and you then go ahead and define an audience or maybe two audiences. Now how do we reach them? Well, at a very high level, every time that you communicate from a marketing perspective, what you're promoting falls into one of two buckets. You're either doing services marketing or you're doing content marketing. And I could have said with services, that can be services and product marketing. I know most of you on the line today tend to do a lot more services than straight ahead products, but could conceivably be either one of those. So services marketing is promoting what you sell. So if someone asks you, what do you sell? I'm sure you're thinking about your rate sheet and your engagement letter, and you're thinking about specific things that are itemized on there, right? So I sell tax services, I sell audit and compliance, I sell HR services, payroll, whatever else it might be, right? Content marketing is promoting what you know, all the things that are part of your expertise. And what's interesting is that we've now reached in most marketplaces, from a marketing perspective, we've reached an equilibrium now where what people want to hear from you, people in your true viable audience, what they want to hear from you is almost always a mix of services marketing, promoting what you sell, and promoting what you know. And sometimes those are one and the same, but a lot of times they're not. So here's another way to look about this. I want to go back to what we said before. Marketing is defined as drawing a connection between everything that you have to offer and everything that your target audience wants and needs. So if I ask you what you have to offer, and I've asked this of many accountants over the years, the first two things that come up are, well, I have expertise to offer. I've got professional expertise that's been built up through my education, my years of experience and leadership. Um, right, that's the functional expertise that I bring to the table. And the other thing that you obviously have to bring is your time, right? So every minute of your time that's spent with a client or a prospective client has a pretty clearly defined value, much more clearly defined than happens in most industries. Right? So I think we're all in agreement that these are things that you clearly have to offer. But what you truly have to offer, what you and your firm have to offer, actually goes quite a bit beyond that. So I would say that the next set of things that you have to offer is your network of colleagues and connections. Think about the times when you've made a referral to an insurance provider or to a lawyer or someone else who can provide legal assistance to your clients, or whatever other sort of partner they may need, right? Um, so they value your judgment in providing those connections because of who you are and what you already have to offer. They obviously value your knowledge, and by you transferring some of your knowledge over to them and giving them insights, they're gaining a sense of empowerment, right? Empowerment over their financial security and situation, and empowerment over their future as well. Now, if we extend that even further, you could say that you're providing some things that are less tangible, perhaps a little bit more under emotional assets rather than tangible or financial assets, but you're providing a sense of comfort. You're providing alleviation of stress. You're providing hope for future prospects. And I've heard this from accountants many, many times, especially those who work primarily with small business clients, that small business clients are so focused on running their business, and every interaction that they have with an accountant has some level of, or can have a sense of, oh, what am I going to find out today, right? You're waiting for the other shoe to drop. And if you can provide them with alleviation of stress, and if you can give them better hope for growing their business or being able to meet their financial goals or whatever other goals they might have, that's tremendously powerful, right? And that's something that you're uniquely qualified to be able to do. And finally, I would say you can be an advocate in difficult situations. Obviously, that can include direct things like audits and so on, but it can be in other situations as well, right? My accountant has told me before that he sometimes feels like he's a family counselor. I'm sure some of you have been in that situation before, or a counselor for two business partners, right? So there's a level of being able to help resolve problems and create opportunities and things that may not be obvious when somebody were to look at your engagement letter, right? All of these things that we have on here are things that are eligible for you to market. They're all part of the range of things that you can market. Now, you may say, well, I can't really talk about these other things without talking about my services. And I would say, if that's true, that's great. When you can combine marketing your services with marketing the power of offering those services and a sense of partnership really, really well, that's exponentially stronger than just saying, I offer these 6 services, and you've got the same bullet points that every other accountant in the country has, right? Let's try to go beyond that. Let's try to think in a more clear sense about all the value that you provide there. I want to give an example of what I'm talking about here. So Joel Greenwalds is a partner at a law firm in New York, and he specializes in employment law. And a few years ago, he saw that a growing number of states were making sexual harassment and discrimination training mandatory for their employees. And so Joel started to ask some of his employer clients if they were beginning to prepare for that, and what he largely heard was, we don't know how to prepare for that. We don't know where to turn to for education and compliance and sort of trusted knowledge in these areas. So Joel and his colleagues decided to do 2 things. Number one, they started this site called Workplace Academy. And you see it says your online resource for a better work environment. Workplace Academy offers training programs for businesses of all sizes. So you can go on the website directly go ahead and sign up your firm for those online training classes. And the other thing he started to do was to offer webinars to anyone who was interested in this topic. And that's actually how I got to know him. One of our sales coordinators knew Joel and connected me with them, and Joel did a webinar for us at Accountants World as well, and we had many people who showed up to hear him talk on that topic. So what do his webinars do for him? Well, number one, they directly drive business for him. He mentions his academy at the beginning and end of his webinars, and lo and behold, people click through after the webinar and potentially sign up. But there's another thing that they do. These webinars position him as a leading expert in this very specific sector of employment law. So if someone comes to me or to any of these thousands of other attendees of his webinar within the past year, and yes, it is actually thousands, that's how many webinars he's done. If someone comes to me and says, hey, I'm not sure how to handle harassment complaints at my business, what do you think I should do? The very first thing I'm going to say, or the very first thing I'm going to say is, I don't know. The second thing I'm going to say is, you should talk to Joel Greenwalds, right? Because I've spent 45 minutes or 50 minutes listening to him and gained a deeper sense of trust in his expertise and what he has to contribute there. So this is a great example of sort of translating what you know to a large audience of people who need that knowledge, and immediately within that framework of transferring that knowledge, you're also able to sell the actual services that you provide as well. So I'm going to go ahead here at this point, and Tom, if we can go ahead and launch poll question number 3.
Sure thing, Div. Div, we are getting some people in the questions tab that are commenting on the sound. Would you mind possibly changing to your other microphone option?
Sure, I'll go ahead and do that while you're doing the poll.
Okay, great. All right, folks, we are launching the poll right now. So the poll is very simple. It's my organization's primary marketing challenge is to, and just select one of these. It is educate my audience, create awareness for our services, convert prospects to customers, and sustain and upsell customers. So once again, my organization's primary marketing challenge is to educate my audience, create awareness for our services, convert prospects to customers, or sustain and upsell customers. And once again, folks, answering the questions is required for CPE credit. I'm just going to go for about another 10 seconds here, wait for everybody to join in. All right. Going once, going twice. All right, and we will close the poll here. So Div, let's share these results. My organization's primary marketing challenge is to, so 9% said educate my audience, 48% said create awareness for our services, and 22% said convert prospects to customers, and 21% said sustain and upsell customers. Firstly, how is your microphone working? Is it coming on?
All right, so I just got connected here. Does this sound any better?
Yes, it sounds much better. It sounds great.
Okay, good.
All right.
So I'll stick with this for now.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So 48% of people said create awareness for our services. That's their primary marketing challenge. Is that something that you see consulting with people and other businesses?
Yeah, I definitely do. And if I think about sort of the answers that that you guys provided for the create awareness, and then the two options after that, convert and sustain slash upsell, the ratio of those is pretty much exactly what I would have expected, that more people are looking to create awareness and a lesser number sort of further down the line. Now, the one thing I would say is the first option, the lonely option that only 9% of people picked, was educate my audience. And I can definitely understand saying that that's not my number one focus, which is what I'd asked here. What I would say is, if that is not part of your focus at all right now from a marketing perspective, or it's not a significant portion, let's try to raise that up for exactly the reasons I talked about before with the Joel Greenwald example. Educating your audience about things that you know really well lifts your boat in each of the other 3 areas. It makes everything that you do in terms of awareness, conversion, and sustenance a lot stronger. right? Because you're building up that sense of trust. So so I think the percentages that I see there are pretty much exactly what I would have expected. I'm going to challenge all of you to sort of raise the level that you're doing on the educate side, and we'll talk about some of the specific ways that you can do that. All right. So this is a dense slide here, and I'm going to try to not let you guys get overwhelmed with it. What I want to talk about is when we think about those four areas: education, awareness, conversion, sustaining, and upselling. Um, there are a number of different tactics that we can use for each of those marketing goals. And I should mention, first of all, I've listed a few of them here. This isn't even close to being a comprehensive list of the marketing options that are available to you, right? As a person who does marketing every single day, there is never a time when I think, boy, if only I had some other tactic that I could go ahead and try right now with my audience, right? We have a abundance of choice. Some might even say a curse of choice in terms of how many different options we have for different marketing tactics. So this isn't comprehensive, but these are some of the main ones. If you have questions about other things that you're doing, I'll give you my contact info at the end, and I'm happy to talk to you about some of the pros and cons of other tactics as well. So early stage, if you're looking to educate, if you're looking to inform people about something that you know really well, a topic that you are uniquely qualified to talk about, blog posts. I think the majority of accounting firms should have a blog on their site. The word blog sounds intimidating. The way I would think about it is, imagine if you were at an event and someone were to ask you a specific question in your area, and it was the kind of question that you knew the answer just right off the top of your head. Hey, how should I think about this problem? Or what do you tell people to do when they have this situation? And you'd say, oh, that's a great question. And then you could speak for the next 4 or 5 minutes, giving a high level overview of that, right? That 4 or 5 minutes, that's a blog post. That's pretty much exactly what it should be. It doesn't have to be extremely long. The focus here is on a title and a topic that is appealing to your target audience or any of the viable target audiences that you picked, and that you can answer in a very confident way without having to get into a tremendous amount of detail. Some people use blogs to get into a lot of detail. In some industries, I think that's really appropriate. I would say, generally speaking, that is not appropriate for accountants, because when you start getting into detail, you start losing people. Things start to get very technical and very, very difficult for lay people to be able to understand. But when you keep things at a more high level, you've got a great amount of information that can be communicated in that way. Ebooks are basically a longer form of blog posts, so they're going into more detail. So whereas your blog post might have 5 paragraphs and you're just quickly speaking about each of those 5, in an ebook you can go into more detail on that. So I saw someone who wrote a ebook saying, here are some of the main things to look for. This was a New York tax attorney, and they wrote, here are some of the main things to look for with some of the changes that have happened in the tax code this year, right? So they wanted to be able to get into a little bit more detail than they would in a blog post. Webinar, like what I'm doing right now, about half the material that I'm presenting today, I have had in written form at some point in the past. So you can imagine the easy conversion from things you talk about to things you write, either in shorter form or longer form, to things that you speak about in something like a webinar. And then finally, short videos. So short videos have a couple of great things going for them. Number one, if you create a 2-minute video that is about your firm, or that says, here's how we provide value to a specific industry. It's because we're uniquely qualified in this area, and we have somebody on staff who handles this, and we've dealt with the needs of 30 clients already in this area, right? Whatever it might be. To say that might take you a minute, minute and a half in a video. When you put that video onto your website, assuming that the video is accurate in terms of what it's saying about your firm and that people enjoy watching the video, if you change nothing else on your website, Google and other search engines will give you about a 30% bump in your search rankings because you put that video on there. Because they know that people love to come to sites and watch short explainer videos, right? And they want to drive people towards things that they're going to want to watch. So it is useful for you in communicating what you do. It puts a face to the services you provide, it humanizes you, and it pays off in everything else that you do from a marketing perspective as well. So I highly encourage you to think about things that you can convert to short videos. Once we start getting towards awareness, you can start introducing things like testimonials and case studies, right? So now they're aware of your firm and the services that you provide. They have some level of trust in you because of what they see on your website and what you've shown them that you can educate them about. So that's the right time to say, check out these other clients that are like you and what I've been able to accomplish for them. Explainer videos. Explainer videos basically means how-to videos, right? How to do something. So if there's something that you can explain in a short video, here's how you do something. That could be the equivalent of a blog post. You just turn it into a short video. That's fine as well. One other thing I wanted to mention on videos, you don't need fancy video equipment. I think I read recently that about 70% of explainer videos that become successful, that actually gain some traction in terms of views, are being made on mobile devices now, are being made on people's iPhones, on people's iPads, etc. You can use that and a microphone and a plain background and create a perfectly fine video. Nobody is looking for you to be the next Scorsese. You just need to, have something that looks reasonably polished, and then people pay attention to your content at that point. When we start thinking about conversion, then you want things like pamphlets and brochures. You want nurturing emails. So when someone has contacted you and you have their contact information, but they have not yet converted, you can send them follow-up emails to remind them of what you've done for other clients and remind them to come back to your site if they have any more questions, or remind them to call you if they have questions as well. And then the final part, once you have them as a customer, once you know what services they are already buying from you and you're interested in upselling them to other ones, you do what I would call data-driven follow-up, right? So you can look at your list of customers, see which ones are not currently buying certain services from you, and then make a very specific case to them for why they would benefit from having those additional services. The last thing I'll mention is over here at the bottom of the page, we have the website. So website is across all of this, right? And this is a really important point. When we think about what our website is supposed to do, right? Almost always what we're thinking about is the first time somebody comes to my website, what do I want them to experience? Which is great. That's very, very important, right? That's a key part of education and awareness. The wrinkle is that on average for professional services firms as a whole, not just accounting, but across professional services, people tend to visit a website 9 to 12 times before they become a client, right? So when you think about it that way, think about why people are coming back the second time, the fourth time, the sixth time, and the 10th time. They're coming back for more validation. They may be coming back to show other people in their firm, hey, this is a firm I was thinking about, or hey, this firm that we're already working with, check out these other services they offer, or let's see what they have to say about this, right? Or whatever else it might be. All of those things that you could itemize, these are the reasons why people would be coming back to my site after the first time. Make sure that you cover that in the content of your website, right? So when you come to a website, the way I think about it is somebody coming the first time to your website, you need to be able to give them a compelling value proposition within no more than 20 seconds. Within the first 20 seconds of looking at your homepage, somebody coming for the first time should be able to get a sense of why they should continue to read and explore your site. But everything else you're doing on your site has to mix in and integrate. Are we doing the right things for repeat visitors, for our customers, for people who are looking to expand the services that they're getting from us? So let's talk a little bit about marketing channels now. Let's talk about some of the sort of bread and butter things that you have going for you, or that you could have going for you, in terms of doing your marketing. So website, we talked about this a little bit previously. excuse me, what are the 3 to 4 key questions that your target audience comes to your site for? So that's a sharper version of what I was just saying a minute ago. I would encourage you to write down what are the 2 things that new prospects coming to my site would be coming there for, and then what are things that people repeating their visits to my site would be coming there for? Is it pricing information? Is it contact information? Is it, I want to see clients like me and what they've done for those clients? Is it show me that you're truly an expert in these areas, right? Create that education. Figure out what those are and make sure that you're answering those within no more than 60 seconds. So I give a 20 to 30-second rule for brand new people coming to your site the first time because they're much more likely to abandon your site quickly. I give a 60-second rule for the key questions that anyone might have when they come to your site. Other things to consider, load time. Load time means how long does it take for your site to load. It's most important for your homepage. So there are many tools that you can use to track this. The one that I use is called websitegrader.com, website, Grader.com. It's a free service offered by HubSpot. And you can go in and you can run this diagnostic tool on your website without needing to download any software or anything. And they will email you a report and give you a score on how your website is doing. Load time is a huge part of that. Google pretty much every year makes load time a more important consideration in their search rankings. So if you want to rank highly for accounting firms in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or payroll services in Seattle, having a fast load time to your website is a real big part of the secret sauce to doing that. Make sure that your website is secure. Go to your website's homepage, and up in the bar, you should see HTTPS instead of HTTP. If you don't see that, talk to your website person and ask to have all of your pages converted over to secure. This was a nice to have 3 or 4 years ago. It's really a must have at this point in terms of browser and search engine performance. Have obvious paths to contacting your firm. So I have looked at hundreds of accounting firm websites, and I would say 20 to 25% of them do not make it clear, if I love everything that's on your website, how do I get a hold of you, right? Seems like the most obvious thing possible. 1 out of 5 accounting websites, in my experience, do not do a good job of making that information clear. So have that in a permanent place somewhere on every single page of your site. It can be in the top of your site, it can be in the bottom of every page, however you want to do it, but be consistent with that. What makes us unique, right? So we want to get away from simply listing the normal 6 bullets of the services you offer and really answer the question of what makes you unique. And you can do that in 2 sentences, you can do that in a couple of paragraphs, whatever you think is appropriate for you. And then finally, the page title. Page title is something that you can program in, or whoever does your website can program in the source code on your website. It's what shows up in the browser tab. You want to include a very brief description of the value you provide. So compare these 2 here. And I've changed the name of the firm here to protect the innocent. So if you have a choice of your web title, and this is what shows up in search engines as well, if you have a choice of yours saying experienced CPA in Knoxville, Johnson Allen LLC, or Johnson Allen LLC graphics by Blue Light Design, I've got news for you. Nobody actually cares who did your graphics, but they do care that you're an experienced CPA in Knoxville. And Google cares about that, and social media cares about that. So the first one is a much better way to write your page title than the second one. Changing a bad page title to a good one can immediately have a 10 to 15% lift in terms of how much search traffic you're going to get. Tom, how am I doing on audio? I know sometimes my computer speakers wear out after a while.
No, you're still coming through great.
All right, good. All right, let's talk a little bit about email. There are many people in marketing and many people as consumers who think that email is so 2010 as a marketing channel. It turns out the majority of American adults still say that email is a preferred way to receive regular updates from companies that they want to interact with. That's a higher rate than social media gets, higher than website, higher than mobile, right? So it is still an incredibly effective way to communicate with your audience. The reason is, number one, it's timely. If you have a event or a filing date coming up, or anything else on your calendar that is significant for your firm and its clients, you have the ability to send an email at exactly the time beforehand that makes the most sense, whether it's a day before, a week before, 2 months before, whatever it might be. It's non-intrusive. And what I mean by that is, yeah, we all don't like to get spammed with tons of emails, and we all get a lot of emails. But if I am in a frame of mind right now to ignore your email and I don't want to see it, I can get away from it very, very quickly. It's not blaring, it's not a pop-up, it's not an autoplay video, it's none of those intrusive things, right? I can simply archive it, or I can simply leave it unread and come back to it later. And it can be as detailed or undetailed as you want it to be. When you simply want to say 3 lines to someone, an email works well for that. When you want to say 4 paragraphs to someone as an introduction to how you can educate them in a webinar or a blog post, you can do 4 paragraphs in an email as well. Email scales very well in terms of the amount of content you have. The way that you grow your email list is with that content that we talked about before, explaining all the things you know using those tactics that we talked about, right? That helps to grow the number of people who want to continue to hear from you in the future and who will provide you with their email and say, yeah, you can contact me every 10 days or every 2 weeks or every month. And your website as well. I encourage you, if you don't have a join our newsletter or join our mailing list function on your website, I would encourage you to do that. Because once you establish a level of trust with people coming to your website, they're much more likely to actually sign up for that. Then you want to deliver fresh content to your list to keep them coming back. So I've got a little chart here. If you feel like your target audience is really asking, what is my problem that you can solve, right? Then what you want to do is education and thought leadership. Position yourself as a thought leader in answering that problem. If the question that your audience has is, how do I fix my problem? Then what you want to talk about is your services, the solutions that you offer, and how suitable that is for their specific needs. And if the question that you think your audience is really asking is, are you the right provider for me of those solutions? Then what you want to do is provide credentials and decision support, which means things like testimonials and case studies and follow up by phone call and so on. Last thing I'll say on email and content, frequency is way more important than perfection. I think people get intimidated by the idea of sending out a newsletter because they say, boy, I don't want to have to come up with something perfect. I'm really busy. I've got one other person who could do this part-time, but it's a lot of work. It doesn't have to be perfect at all. I met an accountant who every email that they send out every month, they're simply transcribing to their admin and saying, here's what I'd like to talk about. The admin goes out and does some additional research, fills in the details, shows a draft to the accountant. He approves it, it's gone, right? It's out the door. It isn't perfect. I'm on his mailing list. I can assure you it is not perfect, but it's great because he's doing it on a consistent basis. That cadence of sending out emails is more important than whether each email is sort of perfectly precise in terms of the language that you're using. I mentioned content before. Just want to talk briefly about it a little bit more. What you want to do is produce and distribute content throughout the year. And what you want to talk about, this is the main question I get when I talk about content, is what should I talk about? What do people want to hear from me about? What they want to hear about is things that are at the intersection of your expertise and your client's needs. Right, so going back 30 minutes, that connection between what your client wants and needs and what you have to offer, right? We want to find exactly the things that are at the intersection of those things. Make it easily digestible. Top 10 tips or strategies, 5 figures that you should know about whatever. A case study of a similar customer. We at Accountants World did a case study recently of one of our customers who's been very successful with our solutions and setting up new processes in their firm. That is the second most popular piece of content we've had all year. And it has almost no mention of us in there, right? But it is very popular in terms of educating people that, hey, here's a peer of mine who's having success and solving the same problems that I have as well. How much content should you have? The way I think about it is 4 to 5 short pieces per year is probably a good place to go. Hey Tom, I'm getting a little bit of feedback from your side, so if you can stay muted for right now. Um,
Hey, Div, I am muted.
it might be coming through from your Sharon then. Thank you. All right, and so 4 to 5 short pieces per year is fine, or you can do 2 long pieces. The last thing I'll mention here is you can also outsource this. There are many good content producers, writers, etc., who can interview you and translate that into marketing ready content. It may be people who've written similar content for people who are already in the industry. So generally content writers will charge a few $100s for each piece of content that they produce, but it varies significantly depending on what level of content and what your objective is. So if you say, look, I'm a 1-person firm or I'm in a 2-person firm and there's no way I could have time for this, hire somebody else to do it. It's an investment that really pays off in terms of creating education and awareness. I know we're coming up pretty closely here. I've just got a couple of slides left, so we should be good on time. Social media. So what social media is really good at is a couple of things. Number one, distributing your content. So when you come up with your 5 tips for preparing for tax season, or 3 things you should know about the upcoming ... or 4 services that we offer that you may not know about, or a case study for a client that you may be interested in reading, right? All of those are great candidates for things that you should be posting onto social media as well. If you create a video, you should absolutely be putting a link to that video onto social media as well. Social media, just like Google, loves videos. Video is like catnip for social media. So distribute any type of content you have, whether it's written, audio, video, whatever it might be. Thought leadership. If you have an opinion on something that's happening in the world at large related to your expertise, putting your thoughts on that out there, can be a great thing to do as well, because it tells people that your experience and expertise is broader than they may have perceived it to be. Now they're more likely to come to you with additional questions, and then obviously once those questions get rolling, that can roll into a consultation pretty easily there. Social media helps your rankings on search engines. So for many firms, if you have your website and you have social media, let's say on LinkedIn and on Facebook, you will in all likelihood find that your LinkedIn and Facebook profiles will be 2 of your top 7 or 8 results on search engines. So that's great. If somebody doesn't come to your website right away, at least there's a chance to go to somewhere else that contains your information and they can contact you from there. And finally, it's helpful in terms of building a consistent brand message. You're consistent in terms of how you're positioning your firm on your website, on social media, on videos, in everything you write, etc. It's less great for direct lead generation. So if you're turning on your LinkedIn profile, your LinkedIn company page and saying, I can't wait for all these leads to start rolling in and all these people to tell me that they found me on LinkedIn, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed with that, because social media is an escalator, not an elevator. It moves people along. It gets them a little bit further down the cycle with you. It gets them more informed about what you do and what you stand for and what you know, but it does not typically do a great job of getting people to move from not calling to calling, right? It's typically going to be your website and email and other tools that will help you for that. Last point I want to make, you've got 2 choices when it comes to your marketing. One is you can market like an ocean liner, and the other one is you can market like a speedboat. Now, what I mean by that is, if you market like an ocean liner, what you're trying to do is quality and depth, right? You're trying to go in depth with your content. You're trying to out deep your competition, right? You're trying to show a deeper level of expertise and show your case studies that demonstrate that, right? Your ability to go very deep with a client's needs and really addressing those. Your brochures become more detailed, all of your other materials follow suit, and you tell your story in a very compelling way, right? Typically, in this case, you produce less pieces of content, you produce fewer marketing channels, but you go very deep in those. The advantages of this approach is that you leverage size, you leverage your scale, and you leverage your history as well. So if you've got a history of offering services successfully, or history within a community or within a state or within an industry, right, this is a way to really go deep with that. The opposite approach is marketing like a speedboat. In this case, you test and optimize everything that you do in marketing. You basically start by saying, I don't know exactly what my clients are looking for from a marketing perspective. So I'm just going to try a lot of different things. You're probably going to gravitate more towards digital channels like email and like changes on your website and digital advertising, because you can optimize and look at the results on those really quickly and make changes accordingly. You run as many different marketing channels as you can handle, or the people who are doing marketing for you can handle. The advantages of this approach is you're much more agile, you can learn a lot more, and you can be responsive to the needs of your audience. So it really comes down to how much you know about your audience, how deep you can go in terms of your content, how much time you have available to you, or that your team has available to go deep with your marketing as well. Right? So there's no sort of right or wrong approach here. So market like a ocean liner or market like a speedboat. So Tom, that leads us to our next poll question.
All right, Div, let me just get that launched here. So
All
our
right.
last poll
So
question is, I
yeah.
believe no, go right ahead, Div. What's up?
So I was just going to say, you see the first two options there, and the third one is let's start with the canoe. Now, some of you are like, wait. I am so not ready yet for an ocean liner or a speedboat. Do not be afraid to admit that. Admitting it is the first step, right? So if you're still at, we've got to do basic blocking and tackling and get our ducks in a row, go with that option, right? Let's hear from you on that one as well, because I think you're going to be surprised by how many of your peers feel the same way there.
All righty. So yeah, as Div said, I believe my firm would benefit more from marketing more like a ocean liner, a speedboat, or let's start with a canoe. Let's see what everybody has to say here, Div. We're just gonna have another 5 seconds here on the poll. All right, going once, going twice, and all right, let's close it up here and let's share those results. So Div,
It's canoe season.
it is canoe season. Yes, 53% said let's start with the canoe, whereas 24% said both ocean liner and speedboat. And I don't think there's any shame in that at all, Div. I think it's a really, it's, sometimes getting your marketing goals in line, I feel, you want to start small and kind of work your way up. I think you made a good point in saying that.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with that, Tom. And I think every organization, no matter how sophisticated they are in marketing, the goal is always to iteratively improve, right? Whether you're starting from 0 and trying to get to 1 or starting at 11 and trying to get to 12, in every situation, what you're trying to do is just get that next step going in terms of building your foundation on all the things that we talked about here today. The other thing that I thought was really great is that there was an exact equal percentage between ocean liner and speedboat. And that I think is exactly proof of my point, which is there isn't a right or wrong approach there. But I think it's really helpful to think about which of those you're more comfortable with and which of those matches the needs of your firm and of your clients, because then everything that you produce, you can keep that in the back of your mind and say, my audience doesn't need, me to be in 10 different channels. They need to hear from me by email once a month and hear a real heavy dose of expertise within that. Or you could say, I don't really know exactly what my client needs. And so I need to spread myself a little bit wider right now and learn over the course of the next 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. And then I'll be able to be a little bit more precise and pointed. So that's great to hear. I'm really encouraged and heartened to see those results, and I hope you are as well. So that concludes my presentation today. I want to thank you for your time. If you've got any specific questions for me for your situation, I'm always happy to take a quick look, and I'll reply to every email I get. So email dbhansali@accountantsworld.com. You can also contact me on LinkedIn I'm happy to connect with any of you, and on Twitter at Div Bhansali.
All right. Thank you so much, Div. I'm just going to take back presenter controls here real quick. Alrighty, and let's get that slide up. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. It was a terrific presentation by Div, and if you're interested in joining us for the next expert webinar presentation, it will be on November 20th. Make 2020 your best tax season ever, featuring Rick Telberg. He is the president and CEO of CPA Trendlines. Rick is a industry leader and a brilliant guy who will definitely give us some great insights onto making 2020 your best tax season ever. So if you're interested in signing up for that webinar or any of our webinars, expert webinars, go to 2019webinars.com. Once again, thank you so much to Div, and thank you so much for all of you for attending, and we hope to see you soon. Take care.
Thank you, Tom.